It was a heck of a day for Gabriel, but you'll have to stay tuned to find out which one. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right. They lift you up. These footballers, sometimes they lift you up, but sometimes they got to take you down first before they lift you up. A little bit of that going on with Gabriel Magalhaes, not Gabriel Jesus or Gabriel Martinelli, but a big day for one of the trio of Gabriels and a big day for Arsenal. And I think in a season where it's been a lot of fun so far, it continues to be fun, but we get to see the team respond to adversity. We get to see the team dig deep and really have to bring themselves back from the brink of what I think would have been a very dispiriting result, and it winds up being a very big result. And so while I would have taken Liverpool's 9-0, I think they're sitting there wishing they had our 2-1. I bet they're sitting there wishing that. And I do want to thank Liverpool for not getting the 10-0 and forcing me to rethink my entire outro to the podcast and starting over from scratch, so that's nice. We had an instant reaction with Clive and Paul after the game over on Patreon if you want to listen to that. We are going to be doing some deadline day stuff this week, probably a live stream or something like that. Kind of depends. With deadline day, you always have to gauge, is there actually going to be any value to doing the stuff, or are we just going to be sitting there like playing sounds of cricket? So we'll see, but if there's something worth doing, we'll do it. I think one of the things that we want to track, kind of like the stock market, is how high can the Antony price go? Like it looks like it might be 100 million for Man United to buy Antony, but I feel like I actually hold out for a little more. Can we get to 120? Can we get to 150 million? Let's find out. Okay, here with me now to talk actual Arsenal stuff and the big win over Fulham is Paul. You can find him on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Hello, Pause.
Woohoo!
And Tim, you can find him on Twitter at Roberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there. Apologies, one of my neighbours has just decided to start mowing the lawn, so if you hear the distant hum of a lawnmower, that's why.
Yeah, but you know what? That just reminds us that we are not yet through the beauty of summer. So that's a good thing. Keeps us all in the ebullient spirit of the moment. Clive is taking a well-deserved holiday or vacation, depending on where you are and how you say it. So we wish him well. He will almost certainly then get FOMO of not being in the conversation and wind up joining for several of the pods during his vacation. So we will wait to see how that develops. So we have a little bit of news. I think the news that Arteta gave is that Zinchenko and Partey, neither are clearly available for midweek. It's still up in the air. We'll have to see. Judging from Zinchenko running the touchline to celebrate with his teammates, I don't think the knee could be too bad. But Tim, the natural starting point for this conversation is the lineup in the absence of Thomas Partey and Alexander Zinchenko. And it's interesting, right? Because I have been saying all season that I think we've moved away from a total reliance on Thomas Partey. But the irony is, one of the reasons we've been able to move away from that, I think, has been the introduction of Alexander Zinchenko. So I thought it was going to be really interesting to see how El Neni, sort of, kind of, maybe, but really Kieran Tierney changed the way we built play, changed the way we progressed the ball, changed the way we were able to access some of the areas that we've had access to, thanks to those two players, and in particular Zinchenko. So at a very high level, do you have sort of initial reactions to seeing, especially I think Tierney, the difference in the way they play and the difference in the way we tried to progress the ball, we're able to move the ball up the pitch with those two players missing?
Yeah, I think this is by far the most fascinating thing about the game, both in advance and in terms of the way the game turned out. Thought you guys covered this really, really well on the instant reaction. By the way, I was saying to Paul off mic, like when I listen to the podcast and I'm not on it, my barometer for how good it is did you guys say all the stuff that I would have said if I was on it? and on this occasion you did, because I think what you really, it's not just, missing Partey and Zinchenko, but those two are basically a double pivot at the base of our midfield. That's kind of how they operate. So those two positions, as counterintuitive as it sounds for your defensive midfielder and your left back, they come as a pair, and that pair was completely changed. And I know we all had like a good discussion about El Neni's performance on Twitter, and I feel like El Neni and Zinchenko would have been absolutely fine, basically. But the fascinating thing about Tierney is because there's a challenge to Tierney now, and like I think a good one, a positive one, not a kind of, well, you're an idiot, no one likes you anymore. Like basically Zinchenko has switched up what that role is. And so there are a couple of questions. Does Tierney do what Zinchenko did so that there's continuity, or does Tierney keep on doing Tierney things so we can give teams different problems?
Either one of those is good if it comes off.
But it looked like to me like Tierney was, asked to do Zinchenko things, come inside, come into midfield, and obviously he's not as natural. So the question is, can he learn it? Now, I think he can. And this is another thing that like a good coach has to do, and a good coach should relish, is teaching people things. So we've seen Xhaka adjust his position, we've seen Partey adjust his position, and we've seen some players who really handle that, and we've seen some players during his tenure who haven't been able to handle that.
Right.
Personally, I think highly enough of Tierney that he can learn it. I also think the thing is with Tierney is we've kind of seen him operate on the interior of the team anyway, just when we were playing a back three. So he used to do that outside of the back three as it was, and he used to roll inside and outside depending on the phase of play. Now, obviously, he was doing that further back. He was doing it in the defensive line rather than the midfield line. The principles are the same. It's just there's more pressure on you in midfield. But we've seen him do that. We know he can do that dual role from when we were playing a back three, and he does it for Scotland. He rolls in and outside. He rolls outside to support Robertson, and then he rolls back inside to defend. So I think he can do it. He's not going to be able to do it, I don't think, straight away, and there's going to have to be some patience there. And if Zinchenko is out for the next couple of games, like if you're Tierney, you've got to think, right, here we go. Here's my challenge. Like I might have 3-4 games here where Zinchenko can't play. I need to get on and show that I can do this. And then maybe I play so well that Zinchenko can't get back in, just like Tomiyasu can't get back in the team, just like Smith Rowe can't get back in the team. So that's his kind of challenge now. And like I said, that's a good one. That's not, it depends how you take the challenge. That's not, I don't think that doesn't have to be are we moving beyond Tierney? I think that's if Tierney shows that he can do that to a good level, you've got a really complete fullback there, because you've got a guy who can go inside, and we already know he can bomb up and down and do Tierney things. So this is about, do I become like a much better player here? Do I add a little bit to my game? And or if he doesn't or he can't, then Arteta really has the choice of, do we just have two left backs who do different things, and that has good sides and bad sides. So I thought it was really, really interesting. That obviously there was a bit of a drop off, but I think that was as much about the pairing, because I think I'm sure we'll get onto Elneny later, so I won't do that now. But I think maybe Elneny Zinchenko is probably a slightly more natural double pivot than Elneny Tierney was. But it wasn't a problem in this game. It was a drop of a couple of percent, and we dealt with it, basically.
That's the thing, right? That's the interesting thing that you hit on there, because if you said to me, what two players, if you took out two players from this team, what would have the biggest impact on the way we build play, progress the ball, access the final third, that kind of thing, I'd say it's Partey and Zinchenko. I wouldn't say they're the most important players for everything we want to do, but for that aspect of the game. I think my thing with Tierney, by the way, is more just that Zinchenko's so good at being in the space to be available, then timing his pass to the next player who's available. And I think Tierney maybe doesn't have as good an appreciation of space, but also he likes to carry the ball to where it needs to go, as opposed to laying off that pass quickly. So it maybe slows things down a bit. But Paul, the interesting thing is, whatever you want to say about Elneny, and we all know, right? We all know he if his back is to goal, he's not going to turn and face. He's going to wall pass. He's going to give it to the nearest guy next to him. But be that as it may, it wasn't really an issue in this game, in the sense that we had 75% possession. I think 73% at the end, 75% in the first half. And just looking at some of the numbers, 80 attacking third passes to 7 for Fulham, right? 10 inside the penalty area. We had 291 passes to 69. We completed 87% of our passes. What's interesting to me is, I thought the story of the first half was the way we were pressing them deep and they couldn't get out. And a lot of nearly chances or big chances, sort of, were being generated by them just turning the ball over deep in their own half. They had 59% possession in the first half. So to me, this game, at least in the first half, wasn't really about needing Elneny and Zinchenko to progress the ball, because we spent a lot of the half in the dangerous areas. For me, the story was actually not turning the most dangerous possession into shots. And a lot of times, it was Martinelli getting one taken right off his toe when he was off a turnover. It was Gabriel Jesus, a lofted ball, over to him from Martinelli, taken off his toe right at the last moment before he gets a shot. Saka deciding to cut in on his left. It's saved well by Leno. It's funny, I sort of had a brain fart in the middle of the game. They were cutting to a clip of Leno, and I'm like, we're starting Leno today? is something wrong with Ramsdale? I'm like, oh no, right. He's a Fulham player now. But so, I mean, what do you think of the idea that, yes, of course, we're going to be different with Tierney and El Neni, but actually in this game, we didn't see that show up as much because we spent so much time in the attacking third and really prevented them from getting out.
Yeah, so I think El Neni is one of those where 9 games out of 10, it's not that important that he's the guy coming up with the magic. He's kind of the continuity hub guy, and he's good at it. He's kind of a rhythm tempo guy. When you have a single point in midfield and you have Xhaka and Odegaard pushed up ahead of them, and the team can support the possession, it really doesn't matter whether it's El Neni who's coming up with the magic. In fact, it's probably better if it's not El Neni, because that's a guy they're going to press. So you mentioned the wall pass, but like if Saliba, White, Gabriel are looking upfield, why would we want El Neni to spin around, try and beat a guy and come up with a line breaker when Saliba's already looking upfield and has his passes picked out? And I think in most games, you don't like. It's great if Partey can do it, and add in 2 or 3 or 4 great passes a game instead of El Neni's 1. But it really doesn't change the course of the game. There's very few games in which you need Partey to be both a great shield and a great line breaking passer. Like it obviously takes a little pressure off other players or pulls a player or two to midfield to open up some gaps. But like, if you're just rocking and rolling, it's probably more important that you dumb down your game and keep feeding your Odegaards, your Xhakas, your Zinchenkos, White, Saliba. Like, there's a bit. If you're as good as Partey at that, great. Everybody else should play that role very, very simply. Even if you're better than El Neni, you should probably play it like El Neni and not try and do a Partey. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was sorry. I thought you'd finished. I wanted to add on this
because I was about to jump into. We're all chomping at the bit. Don't take a breath, Paul.
Because again, Paul, you've basically said something that I wanted to say, because I was thinking about this a lot after listening to the instant reaction. The thing is with El Neni, right? I don't think it's just that he passes sideways and backwards and doesn't lose the ball. I think we do progress the ball with El Neni. We just do it slightly more slowly. What happens? Like, obviously, this is best case, right? You give Partey the ball, he gets the old steering wheel out, like when you're reverse parking, he turns and he punches it through the lines and the ball goes from centre half to Odegaard in 5 seconds. That's the ideal. I think with El Neni there, you still get the ball up there, just in a couple more passes. So I don't think it's just he passes sideways and we don't go anywhere. It's that, like Paul said, it's that wall pass thing. And that's why I think if you'd had Zinchenko yesterday, basically as a team, you have to retune to El Neni a little bit. You have to be like, okay, we're not just going to give him the ball and him give it to Odegaard. If I give him the ball, he's going to wall pass and we're going to go that way. And, look, probably the greatest midfield of all time, that famous Barcelona midfield under Guardiola, they did that as well, that slightly more rhythmic way of getting the ball upfield. It's like with Partey, you do it in 2 passes. With El Neni, you probably do it in 5, and it's not him playing the pass, but it's the, okay. And I think Zinchenko would have understood that as well. I think Zinchenko would have just gone, okay, I'll pass you the ball, I'll move for the wall pass, and we'll just go up like that. Like, what's that old, like very, very old video game, like the tennis one? What's
like
it called?
Knockout or the two. The 2 sliding just thing, and the ball goes back and forth.
Exactly. Yeah. Like with El Neni, you progress like that, and it takes a bit longer, but I think you still get there, basically.
Yeah, now I'm going to be wondering what that's called for the rest of the day, so thank you for that. Paul, you want to finish up on the thought that you weren't done with, but took a ill-advised breath?
So rudely cut across there.
You were like Gabriel for the own goal, right? Everything was going fine, and then you just dawdled on it for a minute, and boom, it's taken from you. Next thing you know, Tim's making all the good points, and you got nothing left.
Yeah. Look, I just think it's a spectrum, and like, if you're near the Partey end of the spectrum, do Partey stuff. Everybody else, like, if you're only 80%, let's say El Neni is 40% of what Partey can do in the exciting part of the game. Like if you can do 60 or 70% of what Partey can do, you're probably better off playing like El Neni.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, just keep it simple. And like, I agree with what Tim said. It just sounded a little depressing because it was 2 versus 5 passes. And I think it could be 2 versus 3, right? Because you got Saliba there looking upfield with a better view than El Neni or Partey may have. And like, how many times in a game does Partey really split things open? 2-3 times he'll do a turn or a spin they weren't expecting. So yeah, you lose something. There's no two ways about it. He gives an option through the midfield and maybe pulls them a little more centrally to open up some gaps, etc. But also, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of rhythm or tempo. There's nothing wrong with moving it out to the left and then across to the right instead of straight up the middle. It's nice to have the additional variety, but 9 times out of 10, it's fine. Tempo it to Saliba, White, guys in good positions who already have Odegaard lined up.
And it's interesting, right? Because you look at where the slack is picked up. Ben White had a brilliant game, just really, really influential. I think getting more and more comfortable with this right back position. I know Clive is somewhere cringing. It's not right back. You don't have to label it right back. It's playing a different. I get it. It's not like traditional right back, but the position that he is playing, which we will call right back, he's doing better and better. I mean, I didn't notice it at the time. William Saliba was 91 of 96 passing in this game. 91 of 96. And like, you can look at the pass map. It's not just tapping it over to Gabriel. Like there's an extent to which he became a little bit of Partey, right? Just a little bit. Yep. He had just a little bit of that role himself, and what a player he's turning into. Tim, I want to go forward.
Even could even add, like, I think Gabriel at times had a really good passing game, and one of the advantages with El Neni is the ball's coming to you, or there's a really good chance it's going. Like it can work both ways. There's an advantage to the disadvantage to the opposition know it's coming, and advantage to us knowing that one of 3 guys is about to receive the ball, so they're all looking upfield for somebody to pick out. So it's pluses and minuses.
I think one of the problems with like falling behind in this game is I think it created the sense that somehow we weren't playing well or something. And I think we had 2.5 XG. Now some of that is game state, I get it, but like we still had plenty of shots and chances in the first half. We had plenty of shots and chances in the second half. The only way they were going to get anything is if we gift it to them. We gift it to them. We still get the goals our performance deserved, right? This wasn't 0.7 to 0.6 and we edged it. I mean, 2.5 expected goals is a ton of expected goals. There were a lot of good chances, 22 shots to 11, 75% possession. So I think falling behind hides the dominance. I watched NBC puts together a package, like a 15-minute highlight of the game package. And you watch that and you think Fulham were never in the game. And you know what? They really were never in the game, except, to be fair, when we finally get the 2-1 lead and then we start shitting our pants and giving them some chances. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Of the 4 games, like, I think this might be my favorite. It's fucking great.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
It was fantastic.
You love a little adversity in your football.
Well, because we had to play for 90 minutes. And like when we go a goal down, we go fucking bonkers.
And we have to slay the beasts of that Arsenal can't come back from a losing position thing. Because I will say this, to your point, the thing that used to really frustrate me under Arteta and Emery in the last few seasons is we go behind and he'd be like, all right, now we got to go for it. But we couldn't create that siege that you need to create on these lesser teams. This was a siege when we went behind, and it didn't stop until we had the lead. But Tim, the key to this whole thing is the captain. This is interesting, and I don't know if it's soft factors, skill, however you want to phrase it, but Odegaard gets his 2 goals last game, and then he comes into this game, and it's like he's gone up another level still. He was everywhere. Now, I have said in the past often that what Odegaard needs to remember to do is he doesn't need to come for the ball. He can stay advanced more so players can find him in pockets of space. Nah, screw that. He was dropping back to get the ball. He was carrying it between the lines. He was stepping up, in the final third. The goal he scores, all right, it's deflected. I think it's going to be a goal anyway, but it's the little step over he does to clear it for the shot. Like, he was imperious. I mean, they nearly had a big chance, but the guy falls over. But he falls over because Odegaard really cleverly runs with him, tugs on the shirt a little, but not so much, right? He doesn't do enough to give the referee a decision, but he does enough to make the player aware of his presence there. Like it was the kind of performance that makes you want to get into the, captain, leader, legend thing, right? Like it was a leadership performance in terms of being everywhere he needed to be, but doing it through quality. I thought this was as good a game as I've seen. And one of the sort of secret little things that he does that I think is so good, and I think this comes from positional football, knowing where your teammates are going to be. When he's in that right half space and he gets it under pressure, the speed with which he's able to switch it and pop it out to the other side. You know what I mean? Like he'll like an in-swinger out to the left back or out to Martinelli from the right half space. And it forces the defense to have to try to swing over. When you can switch quickly, that's what creates instability for the defense. And he's so good at that. So that's a long, rambling way of saying, wow, what a performance from a player who's just getting better and better.
Yeah, 100%. It was, I've said a few times on the pod this season that there always just seems to be a game for one of the attackers. And this was very definitely the Odegaard game. Maybe a little bit the Nketiah game. Maybe we'll come on to that.
We definitely will.
But yeah, he was just absolutely sensational. And what the thing is, the performance he put in, like we have seen that before. We probably haven't seen it quite enough. And I only say that, again, like I've said many times before, I think Odegaard is the kind of player you kind of analyse quite harshly because you recognise the talent. And he's almost never bad. Do you know what I mean? Much in the same way that Ozil was like never bad because he's so clean on the ball and everything. And even in a game where Ozil doesn't create very much, like he's so good on the ball that like you don't get like a performance where he gives the ball away, for example. Doesn't happen.
Maybe a bit
like,
anonymous, but not technically lacking.
Exactly. Yeah, the worst thing you get is anonymity or not really creating anything. But this game, but we've seen this performance a few times before, and I think what we all want to see is we just want to see it more often. And that is mega harsh because this was like close to peak Odegaard, but even slightly under peak Odegaard is still really, really good. And we've seen that a lot. But what I really love as well is I love his goal because that's the doubt you have about Odegaard sometimes about does he take the shot on there? And by the way, the step over that leads to it as well. But that's and we saw signs of it in the Bournemouth game as well. Like I loved his second goal in the Bournemouth game because he just takes it off Gabriel Jesus' foot. And that like I think and hope either there's been a conversation or the player's realised himself like, look, sometimes I've just got to pull the trigger. Sometimes I've got to stop fucking passing it and pull or stop trying to cut back or be too clever and just kind of hit it. And he does this time. Like I feel like even in the first two games of this season, he usually passes that or he usually tries to create an angle. And he was just like, no, we're 1-0 down. I need to score a goal. I need to. And he has that picture in his mind because you can tell with the step over. The step over is all about positioning himself for the shot. So it's not like, oh, okay, I'm here, I might as well. That's what's in his mind when the ball comes to him. He's like, right, if I do that, I've got an angle for a shot. And
this is why I'm an insufferable prick, though. It's so funny because like then later in the game, he takes a really nice, like low stinging shot from the sort of right half space, top of the box kind of area that rebounds off Leno, and Saka was wide open. And I'm like, oh, you got to pass it there. It's like, we're never happy, right? Because he needs to shoot more. And then in that moment, I'm like, well, no, don't shoot there.
Exactly.
Never
like
perfect. Yeah.
You've got to find, like, obviously when you hit absolute peak premium foot, like you find that balance, like Henry found that balance. Henry knew when to pass and when to shoot. And sometimes if you're going through a bit of a, I've got to shoot more, that does mean that on a couple of occasions you might just end up having to be a bit selfish just to calibrate into it. Yeah, exactly. So, but he was like by a long chalk the best player on the pitch, and it's just one of those, there's always more or less a best player on the pitch, but this is one of those performances that, like, I think in February and March I'll still remember this. I'll still be like, oh God, do you remember Odegaard against Fulham in August? Like, that's going to be, like Paul said on the instant reaction, like his performance in the 3-3 at West Ham, very forgettable season. Not many games stick in the memory, but that one sticks, and that's what Odegaard's capable of. He's one of the, I think there aren't many players in the league like this who are just so good on their day that you remember for months and months, maybe even a couple of years afterwards.
Yeah, and he was even doing the...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, he was even doing the captaincy thing well, because at one point I think Gabriel Jesus was starting to get wound up a little bit, and it was a really poor refereeing performance. It was one of those performances where the little team was allowed to kick the big team and not get cards for it. And Jesus was getting wound up, and he got a yellow for like being mad. And Odegaard was doing a really good job, like talking to Jesus, talking him down, keeping people away from the ref, trying to keep everybody focused just on the football, because the football was going fine. He didn't want him caught up with the ref. I just thought the captaincy side of being a captain, I thought that was on display as well. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, so like a big part of why this game went our way was the work rate of the front 3-4 pressing. Mm-hmm. There's very few players that can play that on fire on the ball and put in the blistering shift of pressing that he put in. There were really good examples of him and others partner 2-3 at a time, pushing guys to the sideline, losing the ball, coming back at it. We continually regained the ball when we lost it. When you think of what he did with and without the ball, absolutely fantastic game from Odegaard, just off the charts. I mean, this is it. This is the marker for what a great Odegaard game looks like. Almost everything he did came off. He was swinging crosses to the back post, and it's so important he's willing to take that shot when it's on, when he gets in the box, because you're probably not going to get 2-3 snaps at it. And you know, he could well be the inside position, basically in the inside 8 spot, as him and Saka come into the box onto their left foot. Well, there's a good chance Odegaard's in the better position, in the better slot, closer to goal, and it's essential that he makes this recalibration stick and goes for these kinds of shots. Yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, he really was. And I mean, maybe it was just a day where the front three weren't necessarily at his level, but I remember saying earlier in the season, like, the great thing about this front three is someone's going to have a big game every game and be the one who lifts the team. You know, someday it'll be Martinelli, some days it'll be Saka, some days it'll be Jesus, but actually some days it's going to be Odegaard. And having that extra guy, I mean, I think if Odegaard is going to get 12 goals this season, if Odegaard's going to get 10 goals this season, like, that's a big, big difference for us in terms of taking the pressure off some of the other players, and also the way we might look at the firepower we have up front and may need up front. But Tim, I want to fast forward to the Gabriel error for the goal, and really approach it two ways. There's the football side of it. So what I thought was interesting after the game, you see Gabriel and Saka in like deep conversation, and Gabriel's sort of saying like, you gave me a bad pass there. You know, you floated one, you put me under pressure. I think they were kind of hashing out. It's not a great pass. It's so
you can actually see him shout out B after the goal. After he pulls the shirt over his head, he just goes B, which is Bukayo Saka's nickname.
Oh, that's right. That's what he's called. Yeah. But so, and so it's interesting because the all or nothing thing, it was one of the takeaways I had, is the coach is talking to him and saying, it's your first touch. If you concentrate on your first touch, you always get everything right. When your first touch isn't right, that's when you get yourself into trouble. And sure enough, his first touch on that takes him back inside, you know, sort of towards Mitrovic, towards the center of the field and onto his weaker foot. And then he needs the extra touches and he gets done by Mitrovic. And it's a bad goal to give up in a game where Fulham didn't look like threatening. But Tim, it's not just the way they responded. And I love, you know, the way Odegaard taps Gabriel on the head after scoring his goal, you know, just like picking him up. But all I could hear after they scored is the crowd chanting, Arsenal, Arsenal, just as loud as ever. It was loud from start to finish. But right after Fulham scored, there was no boo, there was no come on, you know, groaning, sort of that anxious trying to cheer the team on, but also kind of frustrated. It was pure, loud support. And it was so noticeable to me. And that, I'm not sure that's something I can remember happening a whole lot, especially, you know, maybe in like a big Champions League game years ago, but not against a lower part of the table team taking a lead against us. I'm curious how you experienced that in the ground, the immense swell of support, not just from start to finish, but directly after we've just conceded a really bad goal.
Yeah, that's the test, isn't it? And I said this last week on the podcast that we did have our faith tested in a very serious way at the end of last season. That was a bad end. It was traumatic, and it was kind of our fault. But no one's taken that with them, and you can see why Arteta referenced it, but it was strange because I feel like Arteta's talked this up a lot during his time at Arsenal, wanting the connection with the crowd. And in fact, when he took the job, the first thing he said was, when he was at that, he'd been on the bench for the Man City game with City, and he just said, I looked around the stadium and I felt sad about what I saw, and building that connection back up. And look, you build that connection up by being good. That's always the bottom line. There's no other way around it. Be good, and you get that, and that's kind of why they're getting it. But I feel like he was talking it up a lot, almost to try and manifest it. Do you know what I mean? And it was happening, but it was I'm going to make sure I mention this every time. And actually, the first home game of last season, when we got taken apart by Chelsea, someone interviewed him. I can't remember if it's Sky or NBC or whoever, but one of the rights holders interviewed him and was like, oh, there were some grumbles in the crowd, weren't there? And there really weren't that many. And he shut it down. Not only did he shut it down, he actually kind of didn't answer the question. He kind of just went, no, the fans were great today. They were with us all the way through. We were bad, but they were great, kind of thing. He's done that, that Klopp thing of trying to build it up, And at first, I'm sure, in a private moment, if you had a drink with him, he'd probably say, yeah, I was over-egging it a bit then, but that's because I wanted this. But now it's not. And what really got me about his post-match yesterday, he mentioned it again, but he kind of mentioned it in passing, almost it didn't feel like a deliberate, I must say this again because I really want to build. It was just almost that's it. It's there now. I not take it for granted, but it's it's an assumed fact. And so he said something look, we went 1-0 down. He almost, like I said in passing, it's but the support we have in the stadium now is great, and that's that really helps the team and helps the players. And it didn't feel like he was pluming up the feathers. Do you know what I mean? It just felt yep, this is something I trust. It's there now. It's obviously you can lose it, and you can't be complacent about it, blah blah blah. But it's this is there. This is something we have now in our team, and clearly, it makes a difference. Whether it's 1%, 0.1%, 2%, whatever, for him to focus on it this much, it clearly means something. He clearly thinks that his team and his players get something from it, and I think he really genuinely feels that made it easier, because it made it easier for, it just must be easier, to keep playing your football, particularly in a game like yesterday. Like you said, Elliot, we were playing well. I wasn't, 64 minutes or so, Fulham score. And I can tell when Arsenal are doing well, when it's 0-0 and in the second half, and I'm not looking at the clock.
Yeah.
And I'm
just
not
feeling
going,
it's going to come. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going, oh, Christ, how long have we got left? How many chances? I wasn't looking at the clock. I didn't look at the clock until we went 1-0 down, because without that mistake, I think we just win 2-0. I think that's what happens.
Or more.
And we probably score exactly the same goals, and it's probably just 2-0 without giving them that. But it's clearly that this has been very, very important to Arteta since the moment he walked into the club. And it's not just that would be nice, wouldn't it? He clearly thinks look, there are going to be times in a season where you get in a jam, and what you want when you go 1-0 down is you want 60,000 people lifting you up. And I also felt, again, I won't go into this too much because I think we'll talk about it later, but the sub he makes immediately at 1-0 as well, that is intent right there. That's right, fuck this, defender off, striker on, go for it. And it all fed the atmosphere, I think, of the team and the fans.
And we're going to get into that substitution, both in terms of the choice and in terms of the performance. But Paul, you wanted to add to that?
So I actually have a question for Tim. I've been meaning to ask him this. Okay. Around this whole thing. First thing I'd say is I'm immensely grateful to Arteta for fixing our relationship with the crowd. and with the supporters, and vice versa. Because I think in some ways the crowd were the first mover, right? That you referenced last season. I mean, they were up for it before the game, the first game of the season. Like from what you told me, from what you could feel. The first 3 games we get reamed, they were still up for it with the fourth game was Norwich. Like they weren't willing to let go the optimism thing. So there was something building there from the previous season, or from just it was time to make that change. So my question's around, he was at City. Now I think Arteta would have been like this regardless, because like he's just tapped into the kind of the pillars of a successful team, and that connection with the supporters. Like, why was he obsessing about playing at Anfield, right? He's recognized some pillars of not a good team, but a great team, taking a club to a great place. This is, I don't know if there's 3, 4 pillars. I don't know what the other 2, 3 might be, but it's probably having a good organization, backroom, blah, 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 good team, good principles. But like the crowd's a big fucking deal. So here's my question. You know City of old and of new. I got to think City were laser focused because like they're into sports washing and there's all that kind of things. But also they were this perennial underdog that now is planning to win the league every year. And they have this challenge with the Champions League and the relationship. Like, did City go through a process of obsessing about how to change the culture within their fans, or get the fans on board? And did that do you think that supplemented kind of Arteta's vision of how important it is when you come into a club to build a top level club? Or is this all just Arteta's kind of, from his side, his machinations?
You've been listening to the way I ask questions for too long. I mean, look, he's still going, Tim. He's still asking the question.
I just had another thought. City are obsessed by Liverpool because they're their competition each year, and like they would have been obsessing about Liverpool and what they've got in terms of the energy.
This is incredible. This exceeds even my longest ever asked question, Paul. I mean, it's literally. I mean that I want to put that in a time capsule and say this is what the Arsenal Vision podcast is all about. Thank you.
Can I cut in here, Elliot?
Please do.
No,
Tim,
I'm done.
Do you want to do? I mean, I don't know that there is a question, but if you want to talk, feel free to talk.
There is, yeah. So what's really interesting is about this feels much more Liverpool than City to me. So I don't think City did do that, and there are a couple of reasons. First off, I think the weird thing is City's fan base, understandably, because they're like a completely different club now. It's flipped. They used to be like very good hue because they had to be, right? They were Man City fans in the same fucking city as Manchester United. They had to have a sense of humour. They were the kind of fans that would sing "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life" when they were 4-0 down. That was them, right? They're not those now. Days. And actually, and actually City is much more, and I think a lot of this is just moving into like that being a super club, and B, I think it's down to the style they play. City to me is very much, it reminds me a little bit of like Wenger's Arsenal, when Wenger's Arsenal were really, really good. It's more come in, sit down, have a drink. It's like theatre. It's like, watch this. We're going to take them apart 4-0, and or like watching an orchestra or something. That's what City's like a little bit more for me. It's very like sit there, applaud all the goals when they go in, go home. And that's the type of football they play as well. Like they don't play a particularly energetic brand of football. In fact, their whole thing is effectively lulling the opponents by just hypnotising them with the ball. What Arteta's doing feels much more Liverpool to me. Like when Klopp came in, it was like, right, we want to play this like high energy football. And also we know we're kind of the underdogs. Like if we're going to go where we want to go, what was that great Klopp quote when he was at Dortmund? He said something like, Bayern's got a bazooka and I've got a bow and arrow, so I've got to be perfect with a bow and arrow. And so bringing all of the kind of like summoning up every marginal gain to your advantage. And that feels more like what Arteta's doing. It feels more Klopp than Guardiola to me. Whereas with City, I think it's much more like, we'll pass you to death in front of like an audience, whereas I think whereas I think Arteta wants a crowd And that's probably because he realises that, we're in a similar position to Liverpool. We need every single marginal game we can get.
It's so interesting too, though, right? Because the irony of all that, and I agree with everything you've said, is that Liverpool won the COVID season, the season there were no fans, which is really, really interesting. Well, to be fair, they won the Project Restart no fan COVID season.
Yeah, and to be honest, though, they'd won the league.
That's true. Before
Project Restart. Yeah.
I'll just finish by saying this too. Sometimes something happens, and then you re-engineer an explanation for how it happened. I think Arteta has done a really good job focusing on repairing the relationship for sure. I think there's also been some things that really worked in our favor. First of all, COVID. Fans coming back from being away from their club and just feeling like, you know what? We missed this. We love this. We want to be behind this. The Ashburton Army, right? An infusion of youthful fans who had the energy and exuberance to support the team and didn't have some of the angst, right? Didn't have some of the cynicism. And then a couple of academy kids breaking through, right? So you have a really good cocktail to create the support. Some new young supporters, a year of not being able to be close to the club, some academy kids coming through that it's so easy to get behind, a refreshing of the squad in that way. And then, of course, Arteta has done his piece too. So I think there's a lot of factors that went into it. And with that having been said, I think one thing we all want to be able to do is watch the sport we love. If we can't be at the ground, we want to watch it. And then when we've won, we might want to watch Match of the Day, or you might want to watch that NBC highlight package, but you can't because you're out of your region and you're not able to access it because it's geo-locked, or there's a Twitter highlight and you're like, it says it's not available in my region. But that can be fixed with NordVPN. NordVPN is a VPN that will obviously keep you safe when surfing from phishing scams and from cookie tracking and tracking cookies. And if you're tracking cookies in my house, they're going in my mouth and in my belly. But on the internet, you don't want that. But you don't have to miss your favorite shows. You don't have to miss the highlights because you can actually browse from other regions and browse privately. All right. If you want to see UK Netflix instead of US Netflix, you can do it, right? If the All or Nothing episode you want to see is coming out in the UK a few hours earlier, you can get access to it. And you can do that with NordVPN. Okay. All you have to do is use our link, nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision. You receive a huge discount on a 2-year plan plus 1 free month. So discount and a free month, right? You get all the privacy, encrypted data, don't have to worry about IP tracking, location tracking, and you can browse and see what you want. They've also doubled down on keeping you safe with a new threat protection feature, so you can say goodbye to intrusive malware. Even if you download an infected file, threat protection kicks in, deletes it before it makes a mess of your computer. Okay, there's no risk. It's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Give it a try, and if you like it, great. If you don't, they'll issue you a refund. It's that easy. Okay, pretend the whole thing never happened. Check out our link, NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision to get your subscription started today. Huge discount and a free month. Do it now. And Champions League Soccer is back. Streaming on Paramount Plus, 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration starts September 6th with the biggest stars, top teams, and craziest fan bases across Europe. Watch every match from the group stage through the knockout rounds as Benzema and Real Madrid defend their title against Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, PSG, Barcelona, and more in soccer's biggest club competition. So don't miss a single sweat-soaked second of regulation time, stoppage time, and extra time, and stream every match of the UEFA Champions League live starting September 6th exclusively on Paramount Plus. And a note to Paramount Plus. On this podcast, that script works better if you're talking Europa League. We hope that won't be the case next season, but it is the case this season. So don't miss a second of the heart-stopping, pulse-pounding Europa League action on Paramount Plus. Anyway, see all the best fan bases and best players like Saka, Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, Martin Odegaard, William Saliba, the best coaches like Mikel Arteta, the best fans like Arsenal fans. Okay, you get the idea. Tim, is that enough of that?
Yeah, can I?
Yes, please.
Can I just say, like, honestly, I have NordVPN and I've just extended. I've just paid full price, like literally last week, to extend. So
you know we have, like, you can cancel because 30-day money back guarantee, and then re-up with our promo code.
I will do exactly that. But yes, I do very genuinely use Nord. So yeah,
I do as well. Okay, well. That is an extended ad break that was not intended, but there you go. We like customer stories. We'll get a customer story here from Tim here. Good stuff. All right. So a couple of notes. One of the things that I think we should talk about is, let's do the positives first. Let's talk Nketiah. Paul, the fact that Nketiah comes on, I think, is interesting by itself. It shows that clearly Mikel Arteta is seeing something in training, seeing something on the pitch that says this guy is ready to really step up in the pecking order. Because I do think last season, Emil Smith-Rowe would be the obvious choice. Now, we don't know. Smith-Rowe might have a tight hamstring. He might be not quite fully fit, and we love him, and we know he's great, and maybe he'll start against Aston Villa. So it's not disparaging Smith-Rowe's quality, but it is certainly a feather in the cap for Nketiah that he was the first choice to come on in a game where we need a goal, and it wasn't in for Gabriel Jesus, right? It's in for a defensive player. I thought Nketiah had a brilliant performance here. And yes, he has a couple of chances he maybe can do better with, certainly. But by and large, he wreaked havoc. And I think you're seeing a few things from him, one of which is just his touch looks a bit silkier. There's a little more sophistication in his moves, the way he can cut in, and turn a man around. It's unfortunate that he doesn't get the finish right, but the over-the-top ball, the way he kills it dead with his first touch is really good. I just think he doesn't have enough room to get that shot past Leno. But so, yeah, all in all, a really good performance that I think shows development in Nketiah's game. And he did finish this game, by the way, with our highest XG of any player in the team. So what are your thoughts, not just on the performance, Paul, but on the fact that he was the guy that was picked here to come on and help us get this game back?
Yeah, it's very interesting. If I remember it right, we bring on Eddie on like 62 minutes because we've gone down a goal, and that's our reaction. And like we don't really bring on anybody else for a long time, and you wouldn't really change how we were attacking. Once he's on, we're going bonkers.
Yep.
Him, Martinelli, Odegaard, Saka, they're all connecting, weaving. And every touch Eddie gets, he does something with to spring us into attack. He's dropping into midfield. He's winning balls. He's winning headers. He spins, turns, his shirt flowing behind him. He's strong. He's low to the ground. You referenced that the chip over the top that he picks up. Like he does this beautiful little run along the back line just beforehand. He does a sprint from left wing into the center of the pitch, into the box. And like it's a really beautiful, clever little find me, pick me out. And isn't it Odegaard who lifts it over the top? And like you can't not see that run. And then it's almost like a wide receiver's pattern, shouting, "I'm open" to the quarterback. It's a beautiful little bit of play. He needs to hit that with his wrong foot is the problem. He needs to leather it with his left. And I think he had a couple of moments where he went with his favorite foot. I think his overall contribution, like if there's a strong part to him and Martinelli's game, Martinelli was on fire at the end. Maybe not with the crosses, though he did launch in the important corner kick that we scored from. But like everything outside of putting in his crosses, Martinelli was on fire. And these guys were all clicking at the same time. So you had the Martinelli multiplier effect. You had the Nketiah multiplier effect. It wasn't just him who was performing at the end. Him, Odegaard, Martinelli, Saka all went bonkers, and it's fantastic. Yeah, were you gonna?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, and I think what was interesting about it, Paul, too, is we did go to the back three, right? We went to sort of like a 3-2-5. Is that even 10 players? That is 10 players. And in the past, like I haven't loved going to a back three as a way to chase a game. And I don't know. Tim, for me,
So I think that's a really interesting point. We didn't really do a lot of threeing with the back three. It was kind of as soon as we had the ball, like sometimes we had more of a back one, but certainly a back two.
2-3-5
get up. We played. What was interesting was it didn't look like a very planned substitution. The only part of the plan was, oh shit, get Eddie on. But we kept we got rid of Tierney. He was probably planned to get off at about 60 minutes anyway, because it's his first game. And then we had at least 4 different left backs in the space of about 5 minutes. None of whom were Xhaka, which was the thing I didn't really want to see. But we had from Tierney to Martinelli to Bukayo Saka, and then we brought on Tommy a little later on. It was like anybody was filling in there depending on the pattern of play, and Arteta's going bonkers. But the whole thing was get the forwards on, and we just leaned into it. So it was interesting that we went to a back three, but White was basically up there in the middle of the pitch, pinging balls. It was like, just go, go, go. Sorry.
No, yeah. Tim, what did you think of that? Because in the past, sometimes when we've gone to a back three, and I get we weren't really playing in a back three, but whether we've made Sacco wing back or Martinelli wing, they struggled to get involved. And we actually saw their influence wane. I thought they switched sides, which was interesting. I thought both stayed involved. And in fact, one of the bigger chances we created, the one where Nketiah is on the right channel and cuts it back onto his left foot and takes the defender out of it. That's from a really beautiful through ball from Martinelli, for example, from the sort of right wing back position. It just worked. And it's interesting because it's not a system that I've thought of as necessarily being effective for us in the past to create pressure. But in this case, it definitely worked. And I'm curious what you think about that switch and how we were able to keep the pressure on with that formation.
Yeah, I think there are two sides to this substitution, which is, first of all, how much of a difference Eddie made in and of himself. I think Duncan Alexander from Opta tweeted that half of Arsenal's shots came after he came on. Now, obviously, there's a lot of game state stuff going on, but my read of it, like I said the other day, I've just stopped looking at Arsenal as a 4-3-3 or anything like that. I still look at it as a 5-5. And basically, I think what happened here was it went to 4-6. Mm-hmm. We crammed another attacking lane into that 5. And what was really interesting about what Eddie did, I felt like Gabriel Jesus, by design, became more static, and his role was to pin. And Eddie just had basically, you look at where Eddie's shots came from. There's one where he cuts in from the left. There's one where he cuts in from the right. He was just popping up everywhere. And, we talked in the summer about how do you get Eddie to sign a new deal when he knows that Gabriel Jesus is coming in. And my speculation was that Arteta must have said to him, not only are you getting the Europa League games, but more or less you're going to be my first sub. If we're winning, I'm putting you on and taking Gabriel Jesus off to protect him. If we're not winning, I'm bringing you on because I need a goal. Basically, in every scenario, you're going to be one of the first guys I go for from the bench. And actually, that's kind of, as much as I'm sure Eddie would prefer to be starting it, that's actually quite a fun role to play. That must have been quite a fun role for him to come on and play and just be like, look, we've got those 5 lanes of attack there. They're going to stay there. And I think that's why he swapped Saka and Martinelli, because we were cramming another lane in. You want those guys probably staying wide, and you don't want people bumping into each other. So you don't want inverted wingers anymore. You just want right, we've got to cram one more guy in here. So you guys don't swap positions so much. Just stay where you are, kind of thing.
Yep.
That must be quite a fun role to play, to just be actually all of that stuff about juego del posición and all of that, we're not doing that for the last 25 minutes. We need 2 goals. Go and run around and just go and get the ball and take shots,
cause havoc, take shots, score goals.
Yeah, and it looked to me like he enjoyed that. He was the one who had the real freedom, while Saka and Martinelli were holding, and Jesus was trying to pin, and it's just Rome and take some shots. This is playground football now. Go and have some fun. So, and I think Eddie played that really, really well. And we've seen him in other games. He's come on wide sometimes. He's come on through the centre. Here he was doing all of that at the same time. And I also think that there's a soft factor element to this substitution. Now, I can't remember if Eddie Nketiah was coming on anyway, because literally, I think I have this right, that we don't even kick off again before, it's Fulham score, sub. So I suspect he might have been coming on anyway, but it probably wasn't going to be Tierney coming off at 0-0. It's probably going to be Martinelli or someone like that. And then at the point that Fulham go 1-0 up, it's right, Tierney, you're off. We're taking a defender off. And I think the intent of that substitution, I think it says something to your team. It says, I'm sure they're in no doubt, and they're not stupid. Yeah, we're 1-0 down. We need to win. We need to score 2 goals. But I think it says a couple of things from the coach. First of all, straight away, let's not feel sorry for ourselves for 10 minutes. Let's not lose 10 minutes fucking about and getting up our own arses now. And actually we get, because you need 2, right? And we get the equaliser quickly. And once we got that equaliser, I was like, right, okay, there's still 20 minutes to go. We're going to score again. I'm sure we are. Whereas if you spend 10 minutes feeling sorry for yourself and then that equaliser doesn't come till the 85th minute. You don't give yourself enough time. So I felt that, like, from a soft factor perspective, it was, guys, now, and now. And the other thing I think it said is that he's so confident. He's so much more confident, Arteta, in like the structure of the team. One of the things I was very critical of him, and I still think accurately, in his first year or so in charge, was just like the substitutions were crap, because it was always like for like, and it didn't do anything to change the game. This did. We were like, and I was looking at that space at left back, and it didn't even really look like a back three to me. We literally just didn't have anyone there.
Yeah.
We kind of just said, look, that bit at the back, that bit of the pitch just isn't important anymore. We're taking that guy and we're sticking him in the penalty area. And it's not that sophisticated, but it works.
It works.
And so,
dominance pays off, it turns out.
Exactly. It was on that lovely borderline where it's nearly reckless, where, like, you know, you're in the stadium, you're 1-0 down, and you're like, right, I want to see us going forward. But even when he made that sub, I was like, oh, that's quite ballsy.
Aggressive,
to do that. We've still got like 25 minutes. And this is the other good thing about having 5 subs, right, is as soon as we get the second goal, we can bring someone on to cover it again. Because if we'd played that last 5 minutes and we didn't have any subs left, like, we'd have had to have just stood someone at left back, someone probably random, but instead we can bring Tomiyasu on. So yeah, 2 elements to that substitution I loved, which was the performance of Eddie himself. He, even though he didn't score the winner I think he has a big part in Arsenal winning this game, and he can feel happy about that and he can feel involved. But at the same time, I do think like the soft factor element of it was really, really important, and good coaching, good interventional coaching.
Yeah, and Fulham deserve credit because, like, they had a lot of good last-ditch clearances and last-ditch tackles. There's another day where this game is played and it's 5-0 to Arsenal because, I mean, Gabriel Jesus is in and the ball's taken off his toe. Martinelli is in and the ball's taken off his toe. Xhaka slides it to Jesus, passes it, not quite far enough. Good stop by Leno. Couple of really good saves by Leno. There's one on Nketiah. There's the ball over the top to Nketiah that he can't quite clear his feet and get it out of. I mean, Martinelli had a gorgeous shot that skims off Tosin's head, just off his head, and goes for a corner. And it's a goal. If Tosin is a centimeter shorter in his leap and it doesn't skim off his head, it's a gorgeous goal. So, like, there were just a lot of those nearly moments in this game. I want to talk Gabriel, but I want to talk Saka first. Mm-hmm. So, Paul, like, I think it's fair to say that if our belief is that Bukayo Saka is one of the best forwards in Premier League football, that he's not playing at that level right now, that he is still good, that we still love him, that he's still doing great, and that there's still more he can be giving. Theo Walcott actually came to mind for me because the time where Saka's in, just clearly in, this is what you get when you have inverted wingers. He didn't want to take it on his right. So he cuts it on his left. And to be fair, he does well to cut to his left and get a shot off. He just can't get it far enough outside of Leno to clear him. That's the Theo Walcott position, though, right? That's where Theo Walcott, didn't he have a hat trick against Croatia? And all 3 goals were that position. And he used to score from that position all the time. Right channel, across the keeper, low and across him, right? Like, that's what you get when you have a right footer on the right side. We have a left footer on the right side. And so he wants to cut it back. I'm curious where you are with Saka right now, because I feel like he's one of those guys that's right on the brink of being able to go supernova because he's getting in the right positions. He's involved. It's not that he's not finding dangerous positions. He's maybe just not getting his shot off quick enough or being quite decisive enough with that final ball. And obviously that's the hardest thing to do in football. So, you know, it's easy to say, oh, all he needs to do is put the ball in the back of the net. I get it. That's the hard bit. But what do you think of his level? Because I think there's a tendency sometimes to treat certain players with kid gloves when it comes to really authentically appraising their performances. And I am willing to sit here and say, I expect more from Bukayo Saka. I think he is better than what he's done so far. And that is a compliment, not a critique, so to speak. But what's your take on that?
I guess I think there's 2 halves to his performance. And maybe 3 things I observe. His relationship with Odegaard, like, we were a little concerned about the right side in the first 3 games, a little rubbing our hands, worrying, were Odegaard and Sack, and like
They were on it this game. Yeah.
The ESP between the two of them, and we always say getting into the good positions is half the battle. Then, like what happened with Odegaard, he buried a couple of goals, and suddenly he's on fire. So I definitely think he was shaking his head after he missed that great opportunity in the first half, understandably. And I wouldn't be surprised if it stayed in his head a little bit and he was a little frustrated, because he's probably frustrated from the start of the season that he hasn't got the end product he's looking for. He plays a big role in the Odegaard goal in this game. So yeah, I think all his connective stuff, all the play down the right-hand side that he's involved in, I think he's superb in this game. It's just that final bit, the end product, and he's missing a couple of percent in terms of kind of the definitive shot at the end, the confidence to steer it around the keeper. So I'm not too worried about it. The pluses for me in this game was him and Odegaard were brilliant together, just totally SP. And the second thing I came away from this game from, because it was got a little crazy at times, Saka was all over the place, and at times he got into those spots we talk about where he's the right 8 or the left 8 on the ball, and like you see a guy who can play, as we all believe and suspect, in any position across the front. Maybe even, we haven't really seen him play a striker, but he can do everything else. He's fantastic when he pops up in left 8 and right 8. And so, had we got Rafinha, we could play that guy starts every game he's fit. I mean, there's always a spot for him. So overall, I'm like super encouraged. He just needs to put the ball in the net once or twice and it'll all come flooding back. But yeah, he's missing a couple of percent of his, I kind of said brilliance on the instant reaction podcast, but it's really just that end product, putting the ball in the back of the net thing, but you only get a couple of shots a game. So
yeah. And I think like this isn't concern trolling, right? This is just, as last season, we were saying he's our best player, and he probably was. And this season, maybe you can say, well, Gabriel Jesus is our best player. But like, if that's the level, if he's our talismanic player, or certainly a candidate for it, then I think that there's another level he can go up. I do totally agree that the Odegaard and Saka relationship combination play was back a bit. I think Ben White also deserves a lot of credit for helping that side look a lot more influential and effective. He was really, really good in this game. The Gabriel Magalhaes thing, though, Tim, like, I'm so glad he gets the winner, right? And you see what it means to him in his interview with Sky Sports after. He's like, did you like my celebration? Like, he had a big smile. Familiarity definitely breeds contempt. There's no question about it, because William Saliba scores an own goal and everybody's got his back and nobody's saying a bad thing about him and still thinks he's amazing. Gabriel makes a mistake. A bad mistake, certainly. From a pass that puts him in a little tricky situation, but still, he shouldn't make the mistake there. And you see stuff like, he's terrible, get out of my club, all the usual nasty internet stuff. And to be fair, sometimes you just got to tune that out, because there's that everywhere. There are people 2 games ago saying Odegaard sucks. But I do think that Gabriel is an excellent player who has been our best and most consistent defender for a few years. He is a really good passer. All the data shows it, but sometimes we forget it because occasionally he has a sloppy one, and the sloppy one sticks in your mind, and you forget the really excellent work he does outside of that. He is influential in the opposition penalty area. He can score goals for us and has scored goals for us, and he has a habit of popping up in big moments to do it. I love the player. I accept that he is not perfect, that he is not flawless. I don't know too many teams that have 2 flawless center backs. I mean, we've even seen lately Virgil van Dijk getting embarrassed. I'm very happy with Gabriel. I'm glad he gets the winner. I loved seeing the way the team reacted to him, specifically helping lift him up. It was ironic because in All or Nothing, there's a moment where Mikel Arteta is saying, you made an error today, we pick you up. That happens. You forget it. You make an error, we move on. Now, ironically, it was Gabriel he was talking to at the time. So here we are. But what's your take on that? Am I too high on the player? Like, do you think that his errors are too frequent, or are you comfortable with him being our sort of anchor of the defense?
Yeah, I'm totally comfortable with it. He's got big Koscielny vibes to me, both in his style and also, that happened to Koscielny during his Arsenal career, and I always kind of accepted that as part of, like, he's an engagement defender, right? And those defenders, they're going to make more mistakes. They're going to get red cards. They're going to give away penalties, just like Koscielny did. But the upside, that if you're good at doing that, the numbers go in your favour, and you just kind of have to accept. Now, this mistake isn't down to that. This mistake, like, it was a weird one. Like, in the ground, I couldn't work out why it happened. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't one of those like, oh, it's a technical passing out error, it can happen. I was a bit, why did he, like, even about the pass, the touch, I was just a bit like, what? Why did he wait on the ball? Even when, like, Mitrovic was on his shoulder, he didn't try to, but, whatever.
So, Tim, my thought on that was he's always been able to bully other players physically, and then
he
there's
tried
Mitrovic.
it, didn't he? He leans his shoulder in, and I think he backs
he thinks
himself.
he can screen it, yeah.
Yeah, and probably against nearly all the strikers in the league, he probably could. But Mitrovic is one of those. That's a fight you don't pick if you don't have to. But generally speaking, big Koscielny vibes to me. And we saw over time Koscielny iron, like, obviously not totally, like, no one ever irons floors out totally, but we saw Koscielny kind of transition from that mid-20s defender who was really, really good, made the odd error, to, like, the late 20s, early 30s when he was, like, the senior professional. And I'm really confident we can see something like that in Gabriel as well. Like you said, Elliot, about his passing numbers, it's really weird because I've always considered, like, Ben White, of the two, Ben White, very crudely and broadly speaking, when they played together last season, you'd say Ben White's the passer and Gabriel's the defender. But you're right. When I wrote a piece about Ben White the other week, I was looking at, like, the FB ref stats because I really wanted to pull stuff out about Ben White's passing, and I was really expecting to be able to say, like, yeah, he's, like, here are his passing numbers. They're, like, the best and, like, the most progressive distance and all of that. And when I filtered it, it was Gabriel.
It's all Gabriel.
Like,
yep.
Yeah. And it surprises you. And when you think about it as well, what we've done while Gabriel's been here is we've taken Xhaka out of that area of the team. So when Gabriel first arrived, he didn't really have to, for the worse, I think, for the team, he didn't really have to pass the ball that much or that impressively, because it was like we were so Xhaka dominant, dependent when it came to distribution. It was like, okay, I'll move it 5 yards to you and you do everything. And obviously that's changed. And Gabriel's a big part of the reason that that's changed, because we've been comfortable with him distributing from that position. And that's something that I probably hadn't kind of cycled through my head enough. So he is a good distributor, but I think he's a really good defender as well. And to your point about his set piece threat, was he our second top scorer last season, second or third? Or something like that. That's consistent.
Damning with faint praise.
Of course. But that's consistent set piece threat. And what's quite interesting is they're not always all headers. I don't think. I think there's quite a lot of. I think the winner he scores at West Ham, which is a header, like, a lot of it's second phase as well. So, like. Yeah. It's a lot of it's like him anticipating the drop of a ball, or not just like this goal. This isn't just him nutting in a cross. It's like, all right, Leno kind of drops it, but, like,
well, also
he
runs. He's the guy who runs from deep and arrives late. So you come him. I think Saliba's in the picture, and then suddenly Gabriel comes in. So it is actually his run that brings the force.
Yeah.
Indeed, because, like, am I right in saying Ben White hasn't scored a header from a corner for us? Like, so yeah, of the relationship, you're right. Like, Ben White's probably the guy. I'd have to go back and look at this, but I imagine Ben White's the guy who stands on the 6-yard box or stands on the keeper, or Saliba in this case, and Gabriel's the one who actually goes and attacks it.
Yeah.
One of the things that, oh, by the way, Tim, did you have a view from where you were of Zinchenko running the touchline to join the celebrations?
I didn't.
And the security being like, is this a fan? What do we do? Like, they were going to go try to get him, but then, like, no, that's Zinchenko. It's just, it's hilarious.
I didn't at the time. I'm on the other side of the pitch to that, and I was otherwise engrossed, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they thought he was a pitch invader, and then my
vision was a little bit blurry, I think, at that point.
He's a madman. There's a video going around on the internet of someone who was sat right behind the bench, I guess, of his investment in the game emotionally all game long, like just going nuts with it, trying to kick every ball, head every ball, and then running to celebrate. It was brilliant.
But again, sorry, I just wanted to
Yeah.
add on that specific point. We spoke, didn't we, after the Bournemouth game about the Saliba thing, and I said, like, how has Zinchenko built up this swift relationship with Saliba, and effusive about him, and never seen like Zinchenko's been with us 5 minutes, and he already seems to have that and that's, I think, all the soft factor stuff we talk about with bringing in Zinchenko and Jesus. That's it right there. Like Zinchenko, you bring him in, he is like, he's not just passing through. I think he even said in his opening interview, like, I'm not here to mess about, kind of thing, and you can see that.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. Paul, the one thing that sort of aggravated me, not aggravated me, but I think is still a thing with this team. This is a group of young players that wants it real bad. They want it real, real bad. And we saw that last season. And sometimes when you want it real, real bad, you put more pressure on yourself. You make it more stressful. And we saw the team sort of go to pieces against Newcastle. And we saw the way the season finished, disappointingly. And I don't think it's any surprise that once the pressure was off, we went and routed Everton at home on the last day of the season. I think that sometimes when you want it too much, so much, it can inhibit you. And I think you see that after we get the lead. There is no reason for us to be giving Fulham chances to win that game late. The 300,000 passes that you keep the ball and kill the game off. We really didn't get control of the game at the end, not properly. And suddenly you start to see crazy stuff like under no pressure by our own byline, instead of just passing our way out, literally like scooping a clearance to the top of the box for what winds up being, I guess it was a drop kick. It wasn't a foul, but there were just a lot of really nervy little final moments that I don't think needed to be there. And I wonder if you think that there's still a little fragility to this team, just in the sense that they want it so much and then they get that lead and your energy's been so high to go chase the game and get that lead that maybe they struggled to just take a breath, get your composure, keep the ball, kill the game. Because Fulham had a couple, Aaron Ramsdale winds up being a hero in this game, by the way. He has a couple big, big saves that I don't think he should have had to make,
Yeah, I can see that. I think I feel a bit differently about it. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, that's fine. I want to hear it.
Like the Newcastle thing last year, like I think we just ran out of players and we were, we just got reamed by Spurs and the trauma that, like, we were out of gas. And I think maybe we need to the problem with all or nothing is there's things you keep and things you let go. This is a different team. It's got a different vibe, different trajectory. I think the real issue, I know what you mean, in that we had very little chill once we got our second goal and we needed to control the game. And we had Tomiyasu coming on, holding up 4 fingers. And we had Holding coming on after that, holding up like 14 fingers, as many fingers as he could find, to say, let's sit back, let's contain this. But I think the real issue at the end of this game was we spent 30 minutes playing bonkers football, taking all the risks, and then it's like, oh, let's just transition with all of these players on the pitch. Like, we had one sub. In reality, we had Eddie, which is quite an interesting conversation itself. It be interesting to hear the reaction if we hadn't got any goals after bringing Eddie on. There would have been a lot of, oh, well, why didn't we use all our subs? And we used one sub basically until we got the second goal, if I remember it right. And we brought on Tommy and Holding, and we kind of settled things down and we contained it. But of course, it wasn't very contained because everybody had been playing high-risk football, high-stakes football for 30 minutes. And the transition to, oh, let's just calm things down, like, players weren't in their positions. As I said, we had 3 or 4 different left fullbacks. Martinelli was playing right fullback and left fullback at one point. Saka had been playing left fullback. I think we were just scrambled. And then, to your point, definitely a bit panicky, because like now we're like, oh shit, we got it. But we got it a little early. We got it on the 89th minute, and we got 6 minutes to go, 5 minutes after the restart. And yeah, there were nerves there. I think it's fine. I don't think we're going to have that much of a mentality issue. Everything's changed now that we can do comebacks, now that we can build up a head of steam. Now there's something called Arteta time in the Fergie time mode. Like, we can actually apply pressure, which we really couldn't do last year. We'd have 20 minutes, 30 minutes where we needed to chase a goal, and not much would happen last year because we didn't really have the players, I don't think, the players to change games, and the level of football that we've just pegged now. And like, so I don't, like I said at the start of the season, I don't think comebacks are going to be a problem for this year. I did say that. And here we are. And I think we just got to let that stuff go a little bit. Yeah, we were very, very nervy here, but I don't think it's a squad mentality issue. You can just look at the game on its merits and say, well, that's because we had everybody going bonkers for 30 minutes and have not recalibrated to, now we just need to sit back, control the game, and do simple things. And we'll learn that in the next. If we have a few more comebacks, we'll learn this stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I want to be clear that I wasn't like outraged about it. It's just, I felt that the last few minutes of this game were nervier than they needed to be for a team that we had 75% possession for most of this game.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you can't keep the ball, and I think that the explanation for that can't be technical. It has to be a little bit psychological. And to be fair, to Paul's point also, you've been trying to basically batter down the door for a half hour and put everybody in the attacking half, and Fulham are making no effort to get the ball in your half. And so there's this change of mindset and tactics that you suddenly have to adapt to.
And nobody had a position for like the last 15 minutes. It was just
vibes.
Be wherever.
It was vibes, right. But so do you think that, and look, this isn't a thing. Like, we won the game. It's fine. It's just that little bit of ability to create that calm, that peaceful possession that Arteta wants us to be able to use to kill off games, and the extent to which we maybe struggled just a little bit to get our foot on the ball and keep, like, there was a lot of kicking it long, like, just get it away, just clear it, when I don't think we needed to. And I think that's just sort of a desire to get it over the line. And to be fair, as I go with the Paul/Elliot version of a question where you just keep adding to it, there were players cramping. I think the players gave a lot and exerted a lot in that effort to make the comeback, and we're starting to suffer physically. I think Ben White was cramping. Martinelli ended the game with cramps. So maybe there was also just a little bit of they were spent. But what do you think about that? The last few minutes of the game and sort of our inability to really come to grips with it and just to get it over the line.
Yeah, I think probably just an inexperienced thing. We literally did this once last season, and when we got the winner, it was basically with the last kick. So there wasn't with injury time, there was around 10 minutes to manage. Like, when we did that against Wolves, there was kickoff to manage, basically.
Yeah.
And, we had to bring a sub on and all of that. So I do think it's just an experience thing. I think I remember saying after the Palace game, maybe, like, when we did seem to fall into that sitting back at 1-0, and I was talking about how, like, maybe one time, like, the more it works, the more you kind of lean on it, and maybe we need, for our long-term health, for that not to work once so that we don't do it anymore. This is kind of the other way around, right? Like, we've done that now. We've got, we've turned the game around. And by the way, not just turned the game around. So, we only did that once last season against Wolves. And in that game, Wolves went 1-0 up after about 15 minutes. Like, we had 75 minutes or so to get our shit together against Wolves, and it ran to the wire. We did this in 20 minutes yesterday. 64, and I think Gabriel gets the winner on 85. Like, that's pretty. It's definitely quicker than we've been doing. I think I read that this is the first time Arsenal have won after going behind in the second half since December 2013. So, it was a quick turnaround. Yeah.
2013.
Yeah.
Jesus
so
Christ.
This is the first time that we've gone a goal down during the second half and still won the game in nearly 9 years. So
that's amazing.
That shows you it's
hell of a stat.
Yeah, it's very, very new to this team. And to be fair, like, not many teams do that. Generally speaking, if you go goal down in the second half, like, you might draw quite a lot. You probably rarely win. So, it's
fair fucks is basically your point. Fair fucks to us.
Essentially, yeah. Like, this kind of thing doesn't happen that often. But the more we come from behind, whether it's in 20 minutes or not, the more I think we'll probably get a better handle on the situation. I do think you're right. I do think it was an emotional thing, and that immediate switch for both teams, where it's like an economies of scale thing, where you go into a, oh shit, like a dog running after a stick. It's like, oh, I've got it now. Like, what do I do with it? And then while you're doing that, the other team is going, oh god, we've got to switch from like, and actually, I kind of think, particularly when you're tired, it's easier to switch to all-out attack than it is to switch to all-out defence. And we showed that ourselves when we went 1-0 down. Like, we threw that striker on and we just went, right, let's do what we've been doing already, but like times 5. I think it's easier to flip into that mindset than it is the other mindset. And I think we just saw a bit of that.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And to be clear, like, I'm sort of making something out of nothing. I just think it was an interesting finish to the game because it felt very nervy in the moment. I think now that we're beyond the game, you forget that. But I was bricking it for the end of the game. And naturally, of course, they get that free kick that shouldn't be a free kick. And they get a really good chance out of it that Ramsdale saves quite brilliantly. So, that just had me be like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I suppose also like the kind of price you pay for having a more engaged crowd is you get a more anxious crowd as well in those moments. And
it's a fair point.
As much as like, and that's not me blaming the fans, but I was there as well. Like as much as like they lift you, like it just does mean when people are more emotionally involved that there's more anxiety in those moments, and that energy must, possibly feeds in as well.
Yeah, that sort of frisson that passes through the crowd, like it transmits to the players. Well, Tim, I mean, it's interesting because now we have a game again on Wednesday against Villa. I think we got lucky. We play Villa at home, and United, so we play Wednesday. United play Thursday evening, right, obviously. And then we go to Old Trafford. So they have one less day to prepare. They have to go to Leicester. We get to stay home, and Leicester are crap. So I'm not expecting much from that, but I think that, these little margins, fine margins, maybe you get a little bit lucky there. But the Villa game is the end of this run that we looked at, the end of this August run of games that you say, we're going to be favorites in all of these. We got a chance to run the table. And now here we are. And this is the last one. Don't look at October. If you can spare yourself, don't look at it because it's scary as hell. Now we get twice a week. Now we get Europa League. That's all coming. To me, this game has to be a win. This is the one where you say we banked 15 points from 15 and we've given ourselves some cushion so that when it gets hard, look, you want to win every game, but we've built up a little credit for the rough period. I don't know that Zinchenko will be available. I don't know that Partey will be available. I certainly think if it's between pushing them back for Wednesday or making sure they're available for Old Trafford, I'm fine with him waiting because I think we could still get it done against Villa without them. But how are you feeling about this game, our first quick turnaround? Do you think Arteta might take the risk of some additional rotation? Maybe a Smith Rowe coming in for a Saka or a Martinelli, or maybe an Nketiah coming. I can't see Gabriel Jesus not starting, but maybe just maybe. What do you think the manager's approach is going to be with our first quick turnaround and a week that I think is a really, really critical one for us?
Yeah, I always fancied, when we were talking about the Fulham game and the Thursday pod, I always fancied that Fulham was not the one that we'd see any rotation, that it'd be more likely to be Villa. Largely also because of the proximity of the Villa game to Manchester United, but also Villa they didn't end last season very well. They haven't started this season very well. The one I'm really interested, I think there'll be one other change. So I think like Tierney and Elneny will stay in. I think there will be one change in attack, and it might be Smith Rowe for Martinelli. I've just got a feeling that he'll want to reward Nketiah. Now, the reason I find that fascinating, though, is because I don't think he'll not start Gabriel Jesus. I don't know, maybe he won't, but I just wonder if maybe Nketiah starts in Martinelli's position or something like that. I've just got, I think generally what we see with Arteta is he wants to reward players when they play well, whether it means sticking with the team when they're winning and playing well, or if someone comes off the bet. I've just got a little feeling that he might give Nketiah a start and just say, okay, look, there's the Europa League in Zurich next week. After this, you'll start that. But you know what? You did really well. You're going to start this game as well. And probably not Old Trafford. We'll probably go a little bit more. We'll go back to the team, as it were, that's largely started the other games. But I can't see, like, for example, I don't think he'll change the defence. So I think like Tomiyasu might be on the bench again until he can get back in. But yeah, I think we'll see either Smith Rowe or Nketiah. But Smith Rowe was an unused sub again yesterday, and Nketiah is the guy he threw on. And it's just that question of, would he start with Nketiah wide, or is that just like a thing that he's happy to do for the last 20 minutes? Because I don't think he'll start without Gabriel Jesus. So that's the one I've got my eye on. I've just got a little inkling that Eddie might start in Martinelli's position, and Martinelli might get a rest. That's my prediction.
Interesting, because I think of the front three, the one who maybe has not been firing the most would be Saka. And he's the one who just has so many minutes in his legs over the last year. So that could be an option. I'm inclined to think he might just try to run it back. The issue is, if he's going to keep Zinchenko and Partey out, I don't think he'll want to do additional changes on top of that, is my suspicion. Maybe he'll be more aggressive using the 5 subs earlier. I don't know. The thing with Villa, they've been pretty diabolical. They lost today 1-0 to West Ham in a game that was dreadful. Their attack has not fired at all, which is really strange because they have some excellent attacking players. It'll be really interesting to see how that goes, Paul. But I mean, do you suspect that he might want to change it up, or do you think his willingness to change it up might hinge a little bit on whether he has the option to pick Zinchenko and Partey?
My read of it is he'll keep it the same as much as he can. Like, he's setting a level, a line for how we're playing. We got 4 days. We'll have another 4 days to United. Martinelli and his relationships with Jesus, he was the surprise for me on the rewatch. I thought he was great, really did, and I didn't. I thought it was just a Martinelli game when I watched it the first time round. And maybe all those bad corner kicks and crosses maybe made me think he wasn't having much. He was fucking fantastic. Him, Odegaard. I absolutely agree. Arteta would be itching to reward Nketiah, but he may just reward him by getting him another great 30 minutes here, keep him very involved. As Tim pointed out, Nketiah must have been having a great time in this game. He's going to come away from that on a high. The game before that, I mentioned in the instant reaction, when Eddie came on, he came on about 75 minutes, I think, against Bournemouth, and him and Arteta were having a huge laugh, like not just a bit of a smile or whatever, like a kind of an in-joke thing. Like, I think their relationship right now is in a great place. I think Europa League coming up, I think they just pace it. Eddie's going to get lots of 30-minute spells for Jesus or somebody else, probably not Jesus. It took taking off Tierney this time. That's the real problem. Martinelli, Saka, Jesus, and Odegaard. You did not want to have them on the pitch in the last 30 minutes of this game that we just watched. That's the problem for Nketiah. You want to reward him, but those guys are all absolutely on fire, even if we're waiting for a little bit more from Saka. So I think it's just going to be, it's a long season. Like, Eddie ended up the last season in blistering form, not really having figured for us. Mm-hmm. And he's going to have so many more opportunities to start to play. I think Arteta will just be saying, give me another game, or just keep pushing. You're almost there, and your starts are coming. And I think for Villa, to your point, your roll, get your 15 points or whatever we're on, and then on to United, and then Europa League starts, and there's going to be all of that fluidity is going to come along. Smith Rowe will get his minutes, people will have a chance to shine, and the good problems we have now are too many good players who need to get on the pitch.
Yeah, well, and I mean, dare I say it, there may be more good players coming. That is going to be the interesting thing. Mikel Arteta has repeatedly said we're trying to get more firepower. By the time the Villa game kicks off, there could be a new face on the bench. Certainly by the time we go to Old Trafford, there could be a new face on the bench. And I mean, whether it's Neto and Tielemans or whether it's someone we haven't even heard of yet or whoever it might be, I think there's definitely one coming. I just get the sense that there's one coming. And so it'll be very interesting to see how that shakes things up too. I mean, imagine if you are Nketiah or you're Emil Smith-Rowe or you're Sambi Lakanga or you're Rob Holding or any of these guys right now, damn, my level is going to have to be real high to get into this team. And it's only going to get harder. So, that's one thing, right? If you're Bukayo Saka, you're our star player. Lift that level, baby. Let's go. Let's bring the whole thing up another level. And hopefully we will do just that on Wednesday against Villa. There'll be more to come between now and then, of course, an instant reaction that day as well. Paul's on Twitter. Pause my pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woohoo!
Tim's on Twitter. Roberto. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
My name is Elliot Smith, Blackman Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Please join us next time as Paul seeks to break the world record for longest question asked, breaking my previous record of 17 and a half minutes. We love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Villanelle.